Good morning, everybody. And we're back. I'm a little late, but it's okay. I'm saying it's okay. Where's Squatchy? I don't know. I see two people are watching. One of them could be a Squatch. I don't know why. It just aggravates him to watch me. I mean, he might be a rage addict or something if he's here. But. All right, so where are we at? So I did not do a live stream last week because if you watch Artcasters or you follow me on social media, you'll already be aware of this. But Corey Kerr and Jim Lujan came into town to visit with Scott Circland. So that I was tied up socializing in real life, face to face, imagine. So I still had to make time for drawing, so there wasn't time for a live stream, so that was why I took the week off. But now I'm here for a update. Let's see here. Little late. Is that what a little late is? Under 5 minutes? I don't know the rules. I have to admit, I do have a tardiness problem. My whole life. I've never dug deeply into it. I've not talked to a therapist about it. I don't know. When I have to be somewhere, like when I really, really have to, you know, like I have a presentation to give or, you know, I have a test or something where it's like, no screwing around. You got to be there on time. I am there on time. But if it's something where it's like, I get the impression nobody really cares when I show up, I can guarantee you I will not be on time. It's a little bad. I'm not even going to try and apologize or justify it, just the way I am, but for good or ill. Paul, how's it going, man? I was working last weekend. I did do work. The time that would normally be carved out for other things then became dedicated to socializing. So I worked around the socializing and I ended up feeling like I was not going to have time for live streaming. Work did happen. I'm still more or less on track. We'll get to that. I appreciate you not being irritated. That's possible. Though they could only get away with that once before I would know that that was the move, and then it wouldn't matter anymore. That's like setting, you know, I've done the thing where you set your clock ahead to make sure you're not late. You immediately know, like, oh, well, that's not actually the time, and it doesn't matter. I don't know. There's never been a grave consequence to it. So it's like I'm a functional addict or something. Like I've mostly got a handle on it, but sometimes it's kind of bad. I was just talking to my therapist about tardiness problem. I'm glad somebody is talking about it. Somebody. Okay, so where am I at? I am working on, I would say I'm about two-thirds of the way done with page 40 of DvsM 1979. Now, you will recall when I started this live streaming journey, my intention was to be starting a new page every Saturday morning, and that you all would be joining me as I set up my new page. I don't know how long it's been now. It's like a month or two now. I've been about one page behind on that schedule where I was starting new pages on Sunday. I think it was... I don't remember what the original event was. There was something that put me like a couple days behind, and I was trying to catch up, and I was just like reliably one day behind ever since. I started to catch up recently, the past week or two. And then this page is sort of it's another one of those monster pages that it's just a lot of work. And that's so that basically there's only one major element left to do on this page that is exactly why I'm behind, because it's just very involved. And so that's today. My goal, and I think this is a reasonable goal, my goal is to be completely done with page 40 by tomorrow night. Now, Sunday night, that's usually kind of, that's behind, but given what I have to do, and I think Thanksgiving week next week, I think I'll be able to catch up, because I'm just going someplace for Thanksgiving. It's not, I don't have to host or anything. I don't have to do a lot of cooking. And I will have, Thursday is kind of going to be a wash with the holiday. I have Friday off. So long weekend. Work is usually dead during Thanksgiving week, because like everyone else takes off except for suckers like me. So so I think I'll be able to, it won't matter that I'm a little behind. But now that we're talking about it, I want to look at what's next, what the next page is, to see what I'm in for on page 41. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but it's a lot of panels, which is the pain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 panels. It's not a lot, I guess. That's sort of my average. But the top, there's one big panel and then a bunch of little ones. It's not too bad. I don't know. This is something I said a few weeks ago. Like, there are no easy days left for, I think, the rest of this year, this calendar year. Yeah, I mean, it's until I get to the new year, these pages are challenging. But I don't know. I still have in my back pocket the option, which I've talked about, but I'm keeping it. This is like in case, it's not really an emergency, but in case of emergency, break glass. I have PTO. I've considered, like, maybe I'll just take a couple days off and like try to get not only caught up, but ahead, which would be nice. I don't know when. I'm kind of waiting for like the perfect moment to do that. Because I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to do that probably once for the rest of this comic. I want to pick like a few days or a week where I can get the maximum benefit from that, where I could really get ahead. And I don't think it's not around. It's not this month or next month. It'll be sometime next year. I'm thinking it will be, looking at my page plan, late January or early February. I think that's where I could get ahead. Because that's where I finally have a few pages that, none of them are easy. Drawing is hard, but those are very manageable pages. Like those shouldn't be, I shouldn't be pulling my hair out like I am with the one I'm working on right now. So I think that's the plan. I think sometime in late January, maybe take a few days or even a week off. I think that would pay off. And if I could even get a couple weeks ahead, that would put me at finishing the book, or at least the drawing part of the book. Still got to do like the intro and like the leaked documents that I always put in there, and like the fake newspaper clipping that I always put in there. And I got to come up with a cover. I know my cover design, but I actually have to make it. Like all that kind of stuff. Like that's once I get done drawing, but at least the drawing in theory could be done like very early March. And I've been telling people like pre-orders available like end of Q1, which would be end of March. It could really be like a noticeable like bump up in the schedule if I time it right. So okay, so talking it out loud, I'm making a note to myself so I can look at my schedule at work and figure out when in late January or maybe very early February it makes sense. Okay. That feels good. It feels good to finally kind of dial it in. Like feels good to have a plan. And I think it's crazy though. I'm looking at this and it's funny when you look at this, you won't be able to make anything out of these chicken scratches. But so right now I'm drawing this thumbnailed page right here. You can see my 2-page spreads, how I thumbnail it all. And then there's the last. So like I said, I'm drawing this page. When you look at it like this, like, oh, I just have to draw this many more pages. Like that's nothing. And even I look at it, and for me, like my morale, it's like I'm almost there. But again, like page a week, each one of these rows represents 6 weeks of drawing. So that's why it's like, but just for, and like some of these, maybe I shouldn't, some of these actually they weren't going to take a full week, but I'm thinking in here somewhere. That's where I can take maybe a week off, keep my head down. I bet I could get at least 2 pages done in a week. So, and maybe even like 2.5. Like, I don't know if I could do 3, but some of these, I bet I could at least get 2. And that would really, that, again, it makes a big difference. That's like 2 to 3 weeks sooner in the schedule. So like, I think that's the plan. That's the plan. So, okay. What is this? What, you don't have to carry water for Squatch, Foo. Don't try and get in good with him. With him, of all people? You don't have to do that. I know this isn't you. This isn't you. You're a good guy. You're a nice guy. You're trying. You're that. You remember that movie Christmas Story? We're going into the holidays. There was Sid, the horrible bully, and then there was his little friend in like the press boy cap or whatever you call those things. It's like, yeah, like that little guy. That's what you're doing right now. That's you. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Always working. Always working. Even when I'm not actually drawing, I'm thinking about it. Thinking about what's next. How am I going to do that? Doing like what I did right here. When am I taking time off? What's my schedule? Always working. It's usually about 2 weeks. I'll be getting, every time I do a new book, I do get a physical proof to make sure everything's going to print. Like you need to see what it's going to look like printed. It's the main reason I went with Comics Wellspring all those years ago with 75. Now, there's lots of reasons I stick with Comics Wellspring. The prices are really good. The printing quality is really good. The paper quality is really good. Their customer service is out of sight. Like, I mean, I'm totally a devoted fan of Comics Wellspring. But the reason I picked them out of the list of comic printing options is they will offer a physical proof, which to me is just non-negotiable. I can't even imagine printing 100 or 200 comics at a time and not knowing what it's going to look like. Just have this box show up and look at them. Like, that's crazy talk. So when I place the order for 79, I will be requesting a physical proof, and that slows it down a little bit, because then you're just waiting in the queue, and then they print it, and then they got to send that out, and you need to wait till that shows up and look at it. And once you get that, then if it's fine, and it usually is, once, like a couple times, there's been little changes I needed to make that were my fault. I set up the file wrong, or a page wrong, or I'm looking at like something I drew that just doesn't print the way I hoped, or whatever. So I'll make a little tweak. Then you send that off, and then it's probably, you can expect your order at least a week after that. Depends what shipping you paid for and all that. So anyway, short answer, beginning to end, from the moment of submitting the print file to having a couple boxes of DvsM 1979, I would say at least 2 weeks, maybe 2.5. That's why, like, I'm trying, my goal, and we'll see how achievable this is. If I take the time off, I think it'll be very achievable. But my goal is to open on the Etsy shop pre-orders for DvsM 1979 sometime around the end of March, and be shipping it maybe like first week of April. You know, it won't be, I won't have them in hand when I open up pre-orders, but I will have at least seen the proof and know, like, okay, I can reasonably expect when this will come in. So to do that, I really want to be placing the print order like first week of March, second at the latest, somewhere in there. Okay. So that's why that's my goal right now. That's why I'm trying to game out, how do I get this done by then to hit that arbitrary deadline I've set for myself. So yes, the thumbnail spoilers. Yes, thank you. You're relieved. I'm sorry, I still have to quibble with the idea that what you are doing is motivating. What is the line from Princess Bride? I don't think that word means what you think it means. That's right. I got my schedule, got my plan. It's as with the name of this, the home stretch, like I can see it. Like we're closing in. It's still months, but like in drawing terms, months is not a lot. Like when you're drawing, it's geologic time. Like it's a different, you know. But no, well, nor should you be. Yeah, I love Comics Wellspring. And I think when I finally do, well, okay, so just to project out, since we're doing planning right now, project out the rest of 2023. So finish DvsM 1979, place the order for DvsM 1979 and start selling it. Next is, so then that will be like around March or April. In late May, I think, is Phoenix Fan Fusion, which I'm going to be at. So I will then be pivoting. I'll probably be doing two things. One, I'll probably do a character creation and analysis video on the main character in DvsM 1979 as part of the promoting DvsM number 3. Meanwhile, I'm going to be drawing the pulp edition cover for DvsM 1979, which again, I already have sketches of, I know the design of, is just sitting down and doing it. So getting that ready for Fan Fusion, because it will be tied to that. You will be able to get it on my Etsy shop, but really, like, what I try to do is have an exclusive for the con. Once I get Comic-Con behind me, Comic-Con, Fan Fusion, which is, again, late May. I think it's late May this year. Sometimes it's early. It's the first week of June. I don't remember where this one falls. It'll be pivoting to writing DvsM 2001. So DvsM number 4. That's a 4. That's 4 fingers, right? Which I already have an outline, and it's very, like, I've got lots of notes. I mean, it's really, all the remaining DvsMs are very fleshed out. Like, there's whole, I have, like, for each one, I have a Word document, and every time I have an idea, I go and, like, you know, add some, I have an outline in it, and then every time I get an idea of how to flesh it out, I go and add it. I also am regularly making voice notes to myself when I think of something, and then transcribing those. So it's just like, it's script writing again, sitting down, and I've got all these ideas. I've got these chunks that may or may not work. We'll talk a lot more about the writing process when I'm doing it, I'm sure. And I would like to have started drawing DvsM 2001 sometime late next year. But if that's, like, at the very least, I'm getting all my research done, all my reference images, and maybe I've shot all my, I would like to at least have it ready to draw. So, like, all my page planning done, all thumbnailed out, all my research. I want to go up to the location where it takes place, which is in Arizona, and I want to take a ton of reference photos. And I would probably like to get all my live model reference photos out of the way too. So I would like to, and that's where I'll be, like, drafting people to pose. I don't know if he's still going to be interested, but I've always liked the idea of friend of the show, Josh Kemble, as one of the characters, like his likeness, which means I'll probably make a journey to, like, LA area so I could, you know, take some reference photos. There's going to be a lot of prep. So at the worst case scenario, I would like to be ready to draw a year from today, or getting very close to, like, ready to draw a year from today, where, like, I'm ready to draw DvsM 4. I've done everything I need to do, and now it's just, like, page a week again, like, getting ready to throw myself into that. That would be ideal for me. I have no idea yet. I never know until I finish the script and then do the page plan, the thumbnailing and the page planning, how long the remaining issues will be. I always hope not long, but I also, it ends up always being, like, whatever the story is, however long it takes to tell that story. Like, I thought this one, 79, was going to be the smallest, shortest one I would write. And as I got to sitting and writing it and thinking about what it needed, and thinking about what kind of stuff I need to, like, lay out for future things in the series, and what is satisfying and what's, you know, exciting to me, like, it ended up ballooning to about as long as my longest one, 97. It's not quite that long, but it's not as short as 75, which is why it's, you know, more than a year of drawing when all's said and done. So anyway, 2001, I don't know how long it will be. Again, I would love it if it was like a 35-page book. That would be awesome. But I won't know till right now I have an outline and I have a bunch of ideas. And that's when you start weaving it into a script, that's going to sort it out for you. That's where you get a script that's fun to read, that's where you realize, oh, this is 20 pages, or oh, this is 80. I don't know. It's not going to be 80. I never want to do an 80-page book, but I don't know. I don't know what it'll be until I write it. And I learned that the hard way with this one. So we'll see. I mean, so in terms of, well, when will DvsM 4 come out, which I hate this exercise because I'm focused on 79 right now. I don't know, because I don't know how long it is. But I would like to start drawing it about a year from today, ideally. Or maybe like a year and a month from today. Anyway, that's the foreseeable future of DvsM. That's the next 12 to 13 months. What was fun when the guys were out, I had coffee with Jim. I let him flip through, I don't have it near me, but I let him flip through DvsM 1979 thus far. So he got a sneak preview of the first 39 pages of DvsM 1979. And then I walked him through what the last three are, like what's going on in the last three. And for what it's worth, he was very excited about them. I could tell he was like, I think he was surprised and excited about the places it's going to go. So, which is encouraging for me. And I hope once it's interesting. This is very much when I look at these, the first three are almost like part one and the second three are part two. And part two is going to have a different kind of, I feel like in a lot of ways, the first three are just sort of laying out the universe and the ground rules. With a story, it's not just pure backstory and exposition. It's not just like, this is how the world works. But that's mostly what they're oriented towards. Like, let me show you these glimpses of these little nooks of it. Men in black, civilians, and scientists. And you get a lot of sense of like the world of DvsM. And now, once we go into part two, DvsM 4, 5, and 6, now this is where not only we can go deeper, because now you're familiar, but like how it all, you start to see the larger arc. Right now, it's just kind of seeds and like individual plot threads that like, if I do this right, which is my hope, I would like to do it right, it all will come together and it will all like result in a something greater than the sum of its parts, which I think should be the ambition, especially if you're doing an anthology. Like you wouldn't want each one to just be its own standalone story and there's no real advantage or disadvantage of reading some or none or just one. Like you want it to all, at least in the very last one, all come together into something. So that's what I need to start steering the ship toward. And I think once people learn more about what I have planned for especially 4 and 5, I think they'll be surprised. I think there's some interest, like it's 4, 5, and 6 are not going to be, they're going to be qualitatively different from 1, 2, and 3. Not better or worse, but you can tell, like you'll be able to start to feel like this, the whole of this with those. I know I'm being a little vague, but I don't know. I like the idea of a collectible card game, though. I like the idea of like a Magic type, playing a Mars bot or a T-Rex or something, I don't know. Or like one of those, if there was a video game, I think it would be one of those like turn-based strategy games. Like, this dates me, but like, remember Shining Force or like stuff like that, where it's like you have your set of either dinosaurs and soldiers or aliens and alien machinery. And like, you know, you can move them forward and there's an attack thing around it. You have different, it'd be like XCOM or something. Like, that's, if I ever had the opportunity to do a DvsM game, I think that's the way to go. Like a rock, paper, scissors type thing. Like Styracosaur beats Marsbot, that kind of thing. 3034. See, you know, sometimes the only time I feel like, do I really want to see this all the way through? It's when I think about the fact that this guy is going to be haranguing me for maybe the next 5 or 10 years of my life while I'm doing this. I don't know. Is it worth it? I don't know. A year is about my limit, honestly. That's why, like, I can only project out like kind of to the next book. I have ideas for 5 and 6, but I can't think about like, well, I would never sit on a calendar and figure out like, so when is 5 going to be worked on and when would 6 be worked? I don't want to. No. See? We could do it. Okay. I am going to make this window a little smaller so I can look at my artboard. Okay. Yeah, so there are only 2 panels on this page, but they are involved panels. And I am trying to finish work on the second one, which is the larger of the 2. Just for the layout, there's the top panel is like this, more rectangular. The bottom panel is like a big square. This is the one I'm still working on. There's 2 characters in this panel. One character over here, well, I guess oriented towards you. What am I doing? Yeah, one character is mostly done. The second character is just like a pencil. Like, I have no, and that's the one that I'll be probably working on all of today and all of tomorrow. That's like, and it's a complicated thing to draw with a lot of weirdo lighting that I have to kind of figure out, and it's, which I'm even looking at now. I'm trying to figure out how exactly I want to do it. But anyway, this is my thing. It's a bobblehead over your right shoulder. That's me. Let me grab it. Let's see. This was a place I worked a while ago now. I think I was hired in 2010, something like that. Left in 2015. I don't remember the dates. But anyway, it was Tiny Prints. It was like a stationery company. You've probably gotten mailers from them. They were bought up by Shutterfly. Just like proofreading cards and doing a little bit of art design and stuff like that. But anyway, once I forgot what you got this for. It was like, it was either if you went from being a contract employee to permanent, or you had been permanent for a year. I don't remember. I don't remember how you got it, but they would get you a bobblehead of yourself. Does it look like me? Here, let's try it. Where is... I'm trying to match this here. I'm trying to do here. There's the thumbnail for this one right there. My glasses were different then. This is closer to the glasses I had then. And my hair was much shorter. And anyway, so yeah. I mean, you can't, what do you do with that? Like, it was sitting on my desk when I was working there. That's where most, like, but then I left that job and now I have this thing, and it's like, I could either throw it in like a box in the closet or just keep it on the bookshelf and never look at it. But I mean, to me, I am very much, I'm a pack rat. And anything with any kind of historical significance in my life, like biographical, I can't get rid of it. So like, there is a rational part of me that's like, I could probably throw this out, like I don't need this. But because it's just such a weird little unique part of my history from a very specific time, a specific era of my life, it just feels like a thing that I need to keep forever. I'm going to die someday. Someone's going to have to clean my shit up and figure out what to donate and what to keep. And they're going to find this stupid thing because I don't know what to do with it. This is the circle of life. I don't know. But anyway. Yes, I have, hundreds now. That's the only bobblehead. It's the only bobblehead I own, period. Mail it to Squatch. I'm afraid he would do something unnatural with it. Look, and I'm not going to judge. It's 2022. Whatever lifestyle you want, it's fine with me. I'm an ally. I'm accepting. But I worry what Squatch would do to it. Exactly. Yeah, it'll show up in some. It will be with the ashtrays and like the weird little China sculptures of just, whatever. And then there'll be this thing sitting there. And with my name on it, by the way. I don't know if you can see that. Is that just a sticker? Oh, it's just a sticker. I could probably pull my name off of it. But it'll be, I mean, that's kind of funny, actually, because if I pulled my name off, like, this is totally in it. What the fuck is this? Like, if you just saw this, it's like, it's some, who is the, am I supposed to know who this is? Like, you wouldn't know. Is this a famous person? What is Tiny Prince? Who is this guy? People would probably think I was the CEO of this company or something. They wouldn't know what this was. Anyway. I'm glad I got to talk about my old job bobblehead. That's a job that, especially this time of year, I do not miss, because their peak season was between like Thanksgiving and maybe a week or two before Christmas, where it was bananas because everyone's placing orders for their holiday cards or invitations to their holiday party. And it would be like like 6 days a week, 12-hour days for like a month. It sucked. It sucked. Like, and when I did it, I was younger then. I was like I said, I got hired in 2010, so I would have been 35. Where it was a little bit easier for me to do 12-hour days every day for weeks. But I have to say, like, now, I'm sure I could still do it. It's not like I'm 60, but like, it fucking suck. Like, I think by the time I left, I was already like, I can't do this for years and years. And there are people who are still there. They were there before me and are still there. God bless them. But and you're just sitting in a chair. It's terrible, like terrible for your health. You're eating shitty food. You can wolf down fast. They're always bringing in like pizza and stuff. So you're like sitting at a desk for 12 or 14 hours, eating pizza, drinking coffee. I have a picture. I wish it was easier to share pictures on this. I was just looking the other day at a picture of myself. They did like a weird photo day where they took professional pictures of everybody on staff. And there was like a series of pictures of me. I just look fat. I just look like, and I know exactly why, because I'm sitting on my ass all day eating breakfast burritos and pizza and drinking coffee and proofreading cards. Like, it's not great. But anyway. Okay. I am going to have to take, I'm looking at a still life reference I have over here that I'm going to have to take a picture of to help me draw this thing. And I can't show it to you because it's spoilerific. But that's on my to-do list as soon as I log off. And we're at 42 minutes. Okay. I probably, unless someone pops up, I probably will only go like maybe another half hour today because the drawing is going to be involved. Now I have to take a picture. Like, there's stuff I can do, and I have to do that I can't really live stream during. But I'm going to. My allergies are driving me crazy. I think it's in my neighborhood. I think people are burning fires, like in their fireplaces. And I think it's, what is going on here? Okay. That was spooky. Every once in a while, like, okay, I'm going to reboot Illustrator because it's acting weird. They're not jazzercise weights. I did. I passed the link to a few people. And if anyone ever wants to drop in, by the way, you can reach out and I will send you the link. But not you, Squatch. Not you. Maybe Foo. Foo, if you want to, if you ever, you have an open invitation, Foo. Anytime. Squatch, I don't know. Depends. Okay. All right, rebooting. That's right. Foo's cool. Foo's on the list. You, Squatch, have to stay behind the velvet rope. You're not, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what capacity is. The kitty is howling for no reason. Don't be fooled by his mournful wails. He's fine. He's just, every once in a while he gets bored and he needs to let everybody know, I'm bored. I'm bored. Blue hair. I don't know how that's a thing. Oh my gosh. Squatch is going to take his ball and go home. Yeah, though I think there might be a slight delay in shipping Squatches. I don't know. Boy, imagine if Foo got his comic before Squatch. Imagine. Boy, I don't know. That would be wild. All right. Illustrator is behaving correctly again. What I am doing right now, without you guys having the benefit of visuals, is I am how do I explain this? Okay, so I'm in a room. I'm drawing in, the action is taking place in a room where it's pitch black with harsh direct lighting from two sources. One person has a light source, one individual has a light source, and then there's an open door and outside is lit. So you've got two light sources, some coming through the door, some coming from the individual with the light source. What I'm having to do, in some ways it's easier to draw, in some ways it's harder to draw. What I'm having to do is, like, I know the geography of this room. I've made a plan for it. I made a SketchUp model for it. I know where everything is. I put the characters in the room. I'm drawing them. And by default, everything is pitch black because it's the lights aren't on this room. There's no windows or anything. The light's only from, again, door and light source. So then after I've drawn these individuals, I need to think about where they are and where the light is and, you know, like what's visible, like how, and usually you're only getting hints of them, like a little bit of rim lighting or just a little, they're a little exposed because they're in an area where there's lit, but they're mostly out of that area or whatever. You would think that would be easier because you're not having to draw as much because it's mostly black. But it's not. In some ways it is. I don't have to do a lot of background stuff because I'm not, like, I think maybe if you followed this, you've seen little glimpses of this room I'm talking about. It's a complex office type environment. There's like a desk and a phone and a shelf with like files in the shelf and drawers and cabinets. Like there's all this shit to draw. I don't have to do any of that because it's pitch black. But what I still do have to fully draw the characters where they are and then figure out where light is hitting them and just illustrate those parts, which means you're still kind of having to draw the whole character. Like you don't know until you like can, at least for me, until I can see them in that space and think about where the light is and what you would see. I don't, like I can't do that step. I need to start with as if it was a completely lit room and draw everything in it, and then metaphorically shut off the lights, turn on a couple light sources, and figure out, okay, now what would you see? So so what I'm doing right now with one of these characters is exactly that. They're all 100% drawn, and now I'm basically just filling, like making them all inky black and figuring out, okay, well, you'd see this a little bit. This would show up a little bit. The light would probably barely hit them right here, and like just revealing little bits. I'm loving how it's looking, and it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun to look at when you're reading it, because it's like normal lighting through the first 2/3 of the book, and then you get in this area with this kind of weird lighting situation. It makes it very dramatic. It makes it very kind of cool and fun to look at. It makes it creepy in ways, because it's like the classic like dark room and what's in the room with you and that kind of stuff. But it's involved. It's definitely involved. It's gonna pay off. Like I've gotten a couple of these like dark pages already, and I love how they look. I think it's some of the most visually interesting DvsM stuff I've done. But again, I don't know if it's even labor intensive. It's like brain intensive. Like you got to sit and really think about. And then there's, because of the lighting situation, like if I have a vision in my head, it'd be cool if you could just see this. Now I need to put them in the scene in relation to the lights in a way that produces that. Because the light, like especially the light from the open door, that's very fixed. So for example, if I say like, I want them mostly silhouetted in this scene, that kind of limits where I can put the camera, like where the viewer is in that panel. Like I can't do it on the opposite side, like with the open door behind you, because they're fully lit now. I've got to, and that also kind of makes you think about, well, how are the characters in relation to each other? Like I can't stack them in a way where it's very choreographed, especially where it's like, I'm not going to let you see much. I got to make it so the little bit you do see makes sense and is comprehensible. You can still understand what's going on in that room, even though you're only seeing like little hints of things. It's just there's a lot of like plotting and planning with it. And it feels a little dumb, mostly for when I was talking about the first thing. You spend all this time plotting out, like, this is what this character looks like. This is where they are. This is how they're standing. Now let's make them completely black and you can't even see it. And let's just hint like, oh, here's their shoulder. Here's a little bit of their hand. So right now I'm doing a highlight on a piece of alien equipment. We'll say that. So you get a hint of it. You see where it is. Can't really make out details because it's a dark room, but you get a sense of where it is. works. That's good enough. So since I'm obligated to bring up Star Wars almost every time, one episode left of Andor. It's incredible. I still say, hands down, easily best Star Wars TV that's ever been made. And I always want to qualify. This should be implied. I'm saying it, therefore it's how I feel. It doesn't mean it's truth with a capital T. It's implied. For me, 100 times better than any other Star Wars show I've ever seen. Which admittedly isn't saying much, because a lot of Star Wars shows I've like actively hated, but some of them are very good, you know, so it's even way better than those. One episode left. I'm dying to know what they're going to do with the finale. It seems they're setting something up, but I have no idea what they're going to do with that. Even if they totally don't stick the landing. I've gone through, because I've just been burned by Star Wars so many times, every episode of Andor I've been like, well, that was awesome. And sometimes that was like even better than the last one. They're probably going to blow it next time. Like they're going to shit the bed somehow, you know? And like, that's what I've been doing every episode of Andor. So now we're at the finale, and I still am kind of in this attitude of like, are they going to stick the landing, or are they going to blow it somehow? Like, I don't know. But at this point, even if they do have a totally underwhelming finale, I think it's still like easily like the best Star Wars thing I've seen in forever. And 100% like the best show on Disney Plus of anything that I've watched, like Marvel or Star Wars, any of that. Like I think it would jump up. I don't want to spoil anything, but if and when Jim and I do get back to top 5 streaming and cable TV shows, because we already did network or broadcast TV, and we do like pay TV, I think it's already in my top 5. Like, it's not even done yet, but it's like, I think that has already earned itself a spot. So I don't think it would be my number one. I think I don't want to spoil my number one, because we'll probably do that show at some point. But my number one is, I feel like it's pretty like secure in that spot. But I think Andor would be highly ranked. I see like hand wringing on some of the like stuff that gets shared in my feed of like, not enough people are watching Andor. A lot of people aren't going to watch Andor. It's not a mass appeal show. And especially when you're talking about Star Wars properties, it's not for little babies. It's not for, no 8-year-old is going to watch Andor. Like that's it. They're going to be so bored, you know, and that's fine. Like, it's not what I've been saying, and I was talking about it at Scott's when we were all hanging out. I'm just happy finally. Look, I get it. Star Wars is for kids. Like, and, you know, and it should be. It should always be accessible and fun and appropriate for kids, by and large, okay? But with all these shows and all these movies and all this content out there, I like that there's at least one little corner of it, Andor, that is for grown-ups. Like people like me. People who, yeah, I saw it in the theater. I saw Star Wars in the theater in 1979. It was like, because they played for years. I know it came out in 77, but I saw it in 79. They're probably getting everyone, you know, keeping people familiar with it before Empire came out in 80. You know, I'm a lot older now. And some of the Star Wars content, I think why I'm not into it. It's like, it's because it's not that it's necessarily even bad. It's just, it's for little kids. It's for, you know, or it's to sell a toy, or it's to, look, the perfect example, that Boba Fett show. At the end of it, you have Boba Fett riding a Rancor. Like, that is the most doodle bullshit in your spiral notebook during study hall thing I've ever seen in a show in my whole life. Like, it is so, I'm not even going to say whether it's good or bad or whether I liked it or not, but it's just, that is like the most just what you'd be doing with your toys on the floor when you were 9 thing I've ever seen in a TV show. Okay. And that's great for what it is. And I know, I don't know this, but I would bet any amount of money there are lots of people who fucking loved that. They thought that was awesome. And I guess it's sort of fun to see, but that's not, I want something more. I want something different. I want something else. And Andor is doing that. And I'm just so glad it exists. And I have the same reaction to Andor, trigger warning, that I had to The Last Jedi, where I knew a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi, but I loved The Last Jedi. And I came out of The Last Jedi thinking, I don't care what they do with episode 9 at this point. At least I got a Star Wars that I love. And that's kind of how I feel about Andor. With Andor was like, hey, I get some people aren't going to like this. I get that this is not what a lot of people think of as Star Wars, or it's not what they want to see, or whatever it is. And that's fine. I'm at least delighted I got to see this show, and it's exactly what I would want, you know? So after this, you can do more, you know, space punks on mopeds. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. You can make, you know, Boba Fett ride what was the monster, the puppy? I'm doing the thing in Empire Strikes Back that was living in the asteroid, like the big like worm that the Millennium Falcon landed in. You can just keep every season of Boba Fett, make him ride a bigger monster from the Star Wars universe. I don't care. Whatever. Do let's see a lot of Ahsoka stuff. Let's do all the Ahsoka content. I don't care. At least I got Andor. That's my attitude right now. But yeah, it's fun. It's like, you know what it was like? Actually, and it's very close to this. They kind of almost homage it when the Rancor is climbing that tower. Watching Boba Fett ride the Rancor and storm around and attack tanks and stuff, it was like watching a Godzilla movie. It was just like, for all the good and bad that is. Like, I loved King Kong versus Godzilla. It's fucking stupid. It's like some of the dumbest shit you'll ever watch. But it's fun. It's popcorn. That's to me, and like, you know, that last part of Boba Fett, that's what it was like. Now, I thought Boba Fett had a middle section that was garbage. I'm fine saying that. The beginning part with the Tuskens is sort of fun, sort of interesting. I wanted a whole season of that. They could have done a whole season of Boba Fett, like, recovering from the Sarlacc with the Tuskens in the desert. And I thought I think that would have been, for me, my tastes, more interesting before you start having him go off and do other things. That middle section of him being sort of an administrator and like walking with his helmet down and like surveying the little town. Like, I was so bored, so dumb, so not how I think of Boba Fett. So like, and then it ended with the nonsense, which was fun to watch. Stupid, but like fun to watch at least. I mean, I don't know, whatever. But Andor, Mandalorian, Kenobi, and then Boba Fett. I had to think about that because Kenobi was like a weird mixed bag. There, it had moments I was like, that's good, that's interesting, that's fun, that's cool. It also had a lot of stuff that I thought was just garbage, but nowhere near as bad as Boba Fett. Boba Fett, for sure, of all the Star Wars, the Disney Plus Star Wars TV is bottom. Have not watched Tales of the Jedi yet. I can't vote on that. Yeah, that was for sure the Tuscans. Yeah, like from Tuscany, Italy. I thought that was the most interesting part. And I don't know. Again, it had some middle section that just didn't work for me. Again, I hate that I feel like I have to qualify this every time, but it's just implied. I'm saying it. Therefore, it's my feeling. I'm not telling you. If you loved Book of Boba Fett, that's great. It's not what I want to watch. It's stupid. I thought it's not stupid. I thought it was stupid. Why do I care about that? Why am I being careful? We all understand, right? Like, I don't like Clone Wars. I'm sorry. Clone Wars is the one I'm most careful about because I have a lot of friends and people who I really respect who love it, or at least like it a lot. So I always try to be careful not to say like Clone Wars is garbage. You know, like I know a lot of people like it. I've given Clone Wars a bunch of tries. I just can't get into it for all sorts of reasons. First and foremost, and this is very superficial, but anyone who's into comics, I think, can appreciate this. I just don't like how it looks. I really don't like that style of animation and 3D and any of that. I think it doesn't look good. And that's the reason I say, like, I think a comic person will understand. We can all think of a book that's probably very good that we didn't want to read because we didn't like how it looked. You know, and it's the same thing. Like, that's my initial barrier. Now, that said, I have given it a chance. I have sat and watched episodes of Clone Wars. I've gotten recommendations for people when I was frustrated. And it's like, I'm not into this. What are the ones I should watch? Because it's this enormous thing, like, to wade into. Like, give me like the best episodes to watch. And I've tried to dip into those. I'm not going to get into the weeds of why I don't like Clone Wars, but there's a variety of reasons I don't like Clone Wars. It just doesn't work for me. And perhaps most controversially, I don't like Dave Filoni's work, by and large. And it was funny, when I was watching Mandalorian, every once in a while there was an episode that I really was not connecting with. And really thought just was like, this is... And I would think to myself on the couch, like, I bet this is one of Filoni's, I bet. And we'd get to the credits, and wouldn't you know, Dave Filoni. Again, I want to be careful because I know a lot of people think he's like the last savior of Star Wars. Like, he's the heir. And I know that, like, Lucas kind of groomed him as the heir apparent, and a lot of people, like, they love Clone Wars, so they love Filoni, and, you know, like, all that. I've never agreed with his take on Star Wars. I've never agreed with his aesthetic, or his artistic sensibility, his storytelling interests, the stuff he chooses to focus on. He's just completely not what I'm interested in. And whatever, you know, like, I don't know. Obviously, I may be a minority opinion in the Star Wars fandom, and that's fine, but I'm not interested in Filoni content. And it's why that's an example of why I'm skeptical about stuff like the Ahsoka series and things like that. I just have a feeling, like, and again, apologies to my friends out there who love Ahsoka. I've never gotten into the Ahsoka character. I've never even liked the concept of the Ahsoka character. Like, it's just starting from the fundamentals, just the idea that Anakin had a Padawan, I have problems with. You know, it's just like a fundamental, like, I don't know. But again, to me, I feel like it's just aimed at a different level. And Ahsoka, I'm not going to say like, oh, you need to be 8 years old to be into Ahsoka. I'm not saying that. I'm trying to be like, but to me, like, it is like kind of a, Ahsoka to me just reads as a character written for an audience that I'm not a part of, you know? So I'm not saying she's a bad character or a dumb character or whatever. It's just something that like I would never be interested in, you know? I would just on paper, Anakin takes on a plucky, you know, teenage girl Padawan. I like already I'm like, this sounds weird. To me, like I'm just not into that. I don't know. And like I didn't like her in Mandalorian. I still have fundamental problems with, and I get, again, I'm a sort of an originalist when it comes to Star Wars. Yoda on his deathbed to Luke, once I'm dead, the last of the Jedi you'll be. I can hear popping out of a bush, there's some Clone Wars person. Ahsoka isn't really a Jedi. Stop. You know, like I just, it's just to start adding all these other Jedi floating around out there somewhere. To me, like Yoda is the word of God. Like Yoda, like it, and okay, she's not really a Jedi. Okay, I guess but still. Anyway, there are some, look, we all have a character. Clone did more for than any of these other shows. It definitely added lore. I think one of my many objections to Clone Wars is like the lore is weird and seems, it doesn't mesh well and or openly contradicts lore that was established in the movies, which to me, it's all about the movies. Everything else should serve the movies or stay way clear of the movies. And Clone Wars, in my opinion, doesn't do that. It muddies the waters. It undermines the movies in ways. It makes some of the stories not work as well. It makes some of the developments in the movies less impactful. There's just, you know, I just think I think they're their own thing. And I think one of my sort of snooty complaints about Filoni is a lot of his work, even though he's George Lucas's darling and he talks all the time about how much he loves Star Wars, a lot of what he's making, I think, is ruining Star Wars. Sorry, I know that's a hot take, but I think, I don't know. I can't share it. The whole thing is a journey. Yeah. I mean, look, I haven't given up on it. Every couple of years, it's like, I really need to give this another try. It's like a book that I've never gotten through. You know, I've got a few here, like Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian is a book. I love Cormac McCarthy. Blood Meridian is just a brutal, difficult read for all sorts of different reasons. I always get about 30 or 50 pages into it, and I just can't. There's something like keeping me from like sticking with it, and I set it aside. A couple months go by, and it's like I'm going to give it another try. That's kind of like me with Clone Wars. Different things. Like I enjoy Blood Meridian, but it's just challenging. But it's that same kind of thing where it's like, I imagine someday I'm going to finish Blood Meridian. I imagine someday I might sit and watch all the Clone Wars. Just to really be able to say once and for all, I watched it all, and you know what? I was wrong. There's actually some good stuff in there. Or watch it all and say like, yeah, that's not for me. I don't know which it'll be, but I've watched, I know. I want to be clear. I've watched some. I've watched some Rebels. I've watched some Clone Wars. Oh, and Rebels. That was another one where it started where I was like, this is cool. This is interesting. Like I was really hyped for Rebels at first. And then when it ended with like the weird time gate space and the light speed space whales, I was like, it was almost like I felt bamboozled. It was like, this is exactly the kind of reason I hate Clone Wars. It's like introducing all this crazy shit that kind of breaks the universe because Filoni. I can't. No, I think that makes sense. I don't understand. Like, I don't get the objection to the Holdo maneuver. Isn't that what they're calling it? Like, it's well established in the movies. In the very first one, when Han Solo is taking a while to make the jump to light speed, and Luke is giving him a hard time. And he's like, you can't, it's not like dusting crops, kids. Like, you could collide into a star or a planet or whatever. Like, so that's an actual risk. That's established in A New Hope. You can light speed into a thing. So then what happens if you do? It makes perfect sense. And some people will be like, well, why aren't people doing that all the time? Are you actually asking why aren't armies doing kamikaze tactics all the time? I think it's self-evident. Like, first of all, it's going to kill somebody. Second, you're going to wreck a perfectly good ship in most cases. Third, you're talking about an army that's under-equipped and under-resourced. You can't be like burning stuff in that way. Like, I mean, I can think of a lot of, it's the same reason we don't kamikaze shit all the time. There's better ways. That's not an ideal thing. That was a situation where it was like, that was an option. I thought it was badass. It was one of the best moments in that movie. I mean, when that went quiet in that audience, in a live audience, it's pretty cool. Okay, well, so here's the thing. I get it. I've heard variations of this many times. And I'm not even going to dispute it. I feel like I could, but I'm not even going to say like, well, actually, like I'll grant you that. Here's my problem. And I realize this is a weird, some people, this is like a silly complaint. I'm not a fan of this idea of the prequels didn't work. The prequels were poorly written. Give us 7 or 8 years and 180 episodes or something, and we'll make them make sense. Like, I kind of, that's another thing. Like, sometimes Clone Wars can do a lot of things that I think are obnoxious, but one of the many things it can do is like, let's band-aid these defective movies. And I worry that's the dark future we have for Star Wars, where there are little hints in Mandalorian. So Rise of Skywalker, I think in the prequels, the big thing that was flubbed was Anakin's fall. In theory, the whole point of the prequels should be Anakin's fall, and it was the most half-assed, lazy storytelling of the most important element of this trilogy, okay? And a lot of content since then has been making that make sense, making that work. Okay, and telling where did Anakin come from, and who was Plagueis, and how did Anakin turn, and like, I mean, like making that all make sense. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of like writing. It's like let's do narrative to make this thing work. I mean, I get why they're doing it, but that immediately turns me off. I think now Rise of Skywalker blew things up with this whole Sidious was sort of alive this whole time. Snoke was a weird manufactured clone by him. Like all of that, which in Rise of Skywalker, I think even people who like that movie were like, what? And now with Mandalorian, you're seeing hints of like, oh, the Empire, they're doing the same thing. And I don't want Mandalorian or any other future shows to turn into like, let's make Rise of Skywalker make sense. Like that, I would just assume everyone walked away from it and told a Star Wars story away from all of that. Like it, rather than do like damage control on, wait, like Palpatine had a kid or a clone kid or Snoke was made. I don't try and double down on your bad lie. Don't I'm late to work because my car broke down. It's like, oh, well, how'd you get here? Well, it turned out it wasn't actually broke down. I had to I don't want to sit and listen to this. Just move on. Just let's tell other stories. I want Star Wars set 20 years after Rise of Skywalker. I want a Star Wars movie set 1,000 years before Phantom Menace. It's or where it's this is a kind of an area how does we haven't seen a lot about the rebellion and how the rebellion got off the ground. And Mon Moth, you see little bits in Rebels, you see little bits in Clone Wars, whatever. But really where it's coming to getting some momentum. This is an area, and we've not seen ground level. We're always ushering in Star Wars royalty. We got a Jedi somewhere. And I love Jedi stuff, and I love lightsaber stuff. But there's always a lightsaber somewhere. There's oh, look, there's Chewbacca or whatever. It's played. Let's go someplace new. Anyway, that's my little, I'm sorry. It's, anyway. I saw the chat go crazy. No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I don't think so. And this came up at Scott's. We were talking about our favorite Star Wars moments. And I think I was probably in the minority of the table where I loved that idea in The Last Jedi. And I think it was the idea of Luke projecting himself first of all, they did a pretty good job establishing it in the whole movie leading up to it. Just with Kylo and Rey interacting, you saw that you're setting the ground this is a thing that's possible, okay? So it allows you to say okay, if someone was really powerful in the Force, what could they do with this? I think and I know a lot of people disagree. I know a lot of people wanted Luke to be Luke in Mandalorian. They wanted to see him show up and just chop shit up with his lightsaber, okay? To me, what he did do in The Last Jedi was more impressive. It was a more staggering display of his ability with the Force than him just showing up and being the bride from Kill Bill. This is a way more impressive flex. To me, I know people disagree, but I thought that was a way more impressive. But this is coming from a guy who thought the Yoda Dooku fight in Attack of the Clones was dumb, that it should have been a weird wizard force battle. It started out as that the idea of Yoda, who's been around for 900 years, still with his cane, this little pulling out his lightsaber and jumping around, is dumb and doesn't show off his ability. I think the ability should be shown off with his mastery of the Force, not his mastery of cutting things in half. It's a different. It's if you watch Dumbledore headbutt. I'm blanking on my Harry Potter names. I'm not a huge, but it's it's too no. I don't want to see Dumbledore doing kung fu. I don't want to see Yoda using a lightsaber. And I want to see Luke kind of at a level now where he can do things that other Jedi can't. That's what I want. I don't want to see him do a flip. It's weird. That's not weird. I don't want that. I realize I'm a minority. That's not what I want to see. I have a different idea of where Luke should be operating. It's not the same mass. It's too little. I mean, yeah, you could, but again, now you're talking about kamikaze stuff, And by the way, we did see that, sort of. When the shield was down, we saw a A-wing, if I remember right, in Return of the Jedi. It wasn't light speed, but it crashed into the bridge of a Star Destroyer and tanked it, disabled it. And we saw now I'm remembering, in Rogue One, we see the Hammerhead ship, once the gravity thing isn't working, or the Star Destroyer was disabled, we saw the Hammerhead ship push it into another Star Destroyer and kill them both. So like we've established there's sort of a fragility to these. Like to me, it's not, I don't know. I guess I just don't get the complaint. It's like, yeah, I guess that's conceivable. Like you have this giant, like a huge, remember, a giant ship. You light speed into another ship. You don't even destroy that ship. You disable it. You kind of split it down the middle. But remember, everyone on there is still alive. It's only the people who are right where the ship hit that were killed. I mean, what would you expect to happen? I guess that's my question. If Han Solo in A New Hope, we're really getting into Star Wars trivia here. If Han Solo in A New Hope is establishing light speed, you can crash into things. Okay. So now I'm in a ship that can go light speed. Let's say I'm the Millennium Falcon and I light speed into something. What are the people who didn't like that in The Last Jedi proposing should have happened? Should it have just evaporated like on the other ship? Like what? Why? Like, of course it would do some damage. Like, to me, it doesn't break again, it's just like today. Why don't we fly F-35s into things? Because why would you do that? F-35 is expensive. We have missiles, we have bombs, we have guns. There's a pilot in the F-35. Why are we killing, like, why would you do that? Are the Ukrainians suiciding? Like, no. You need people. You need equipment. You don't want to destroy. You want to make a ship just to crash it? Doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, we'll make a little one. That's not really a ship. Yeah, that's called a missile. We have those in Star Wars. So I don't know what, and the light speed stuff, it's a limited thing. You can't really make it small enough. If you make it small enough, it's not going to do as much damage. I can think of, like, to me, it makes sense. I don't know. I hate to say it, and I don't want to, I think a lot of people, this is actually a good example of, if you're having fun with a movie, you can suspend disbelief and you can come up, and if you're not into it, if this isn't working for you, then you start to see seams, and like none of it is going to work for you. I think people who didn't like The Last Jedi, there's just all sorts of stuff that's like, well, why? Like, that doesn't, and it's not even because that stuff there's anything wrong with it. It's because you're just not into it. You haven't bought into this. If you've bought into it, whatever it is, any movie, you're kind of like, like a James Bond movie. How does he have a thing in his watch? If you're having a good time, it's fine. You don't care. But if you're sitting in James Bond and thinking, like, this is garbage, then it's like, are you telling me, like, Mission Impossible, his gum is plastic explosive? How could that even work? Like, it's because you're not having fun. You're nitpicking because you don't like it. I don't know. Which do you like least, Clone Wars or the original expanded universe? To me, they have a lot of the same problems. Boy, that's tough. And I do think they have a lot of the same problems. It's when I think of my complaints about Clone Wars, they are almost identical to, I hated the expanded universe back in the day. I thought it was just mediocre content that was fleshing out things that shouldn't have been fleshed out, that was potentially creating questions and problems with the core content, which is the movies. Or like, again, like undermining, steering away from, like you have Thrawn and his little, whatever that little thing was that would mute Star Wars, like force powers. Like once that's in the book, you're like, I feel like that's something I should have seen in the movies. I feel like that could have even been taught. It's like you're doing stuff that's like making the movies make less sense rather than, I don't know. But anyway, to answer your question, Clone Wars or the original expanded universe? The original expanded universe is massive. So there's a lot of content there. It's in Clone Wars, I don't think is quite, it's not covering as much and it's not as sprawling, but probably I liked expanded universe less. Because I will give Clone Wars this. Like, I've seen a little bit of Clone Wars, and some of it is, you know, it's good. I'm not saying like Clone Wars is just a bad show. You know, it's just bad, like objectively bad. I'm not saying that. It's just not, I feel like it's just misdirected. Where I feel like a lot of expanded universe content was bad. It just was bad. And like when Disney came in and said basically like none of this counts anymore, none of this is canon, I was like, you know, thank you. Because it was garbage. A lot of it was just garbage. People remember highlights like Thrawn and like, you know, stuff like that, like that were these little bits in it that were sort of cool. Most of it was bad. I'm sorry. Like it was good that it was gone. Like, but that's why I started to get frustrated with Clone Wars and things, because I felt like you're making the same mistakes. Like you're just doing it all over. So, but Expanded Universe was worse, for sure. If for no other reason that had quality control issues. Can imagine what if, but once they showed it, made everything else seem silly. I'm assuming you were talking about the Holdo thing. I don't know. To me, of all the things I can object to in The Last Jedi, that was the least of it. Like I thought it was an awesome moment, made sense to me, you know. No, I think it's no. I disagree with. It's a physics problem. You can light speed an X-wing into a planet or a TIE fighter in a planet. Well, first of all, TIE fighters can't do light speed. Excuse me. TIE fighters are not light speed capable. But even if it was, let's say you had a crazy terrorist in an X-wing that could light speed into, or even a giant cruiser. It becomes now a physics problem. It's not going to do anything. It's going to just make a big crater. You're not going to destroy the whole planet. I know a lot of people do. I just think, and I like bits of all of them. I think they're clunky. I think they're poorly written. I think they're not really well shot. It's tough. As a creator, props to Lucas for saying, I'm going to make this all my show. I'm going to write them myself. I'm going to direct them myself. I'm going to do exactly what I want. I'm not going to listen to a studio. I'm not going to collaborate with anybody. I'm barely going to collaborate with these poor actors who have to read this shit I wrote. I'm just going to make my vision. And there's a part of me, a creator, and that's like, that's awesome. Good for him. There's also another part of me that's like, the best Star Warses we've ever had were the product of collaboration. I mean, A New Hope that was basically written by his ex-wife, if I remember right. And it kind of came together in the edit. Okay. When you really look at A New Hope, first of all, I mean, I'm not selling any of it short. It is visionary. It was amazing at the time. It's still remarkable to watch. Not the best acting. Not like, I mean, it's clunky in places. Like there's some lines I still don't even understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like it's just not the best written thing in the world. It's not the best film in the world. It's important. It's amazing. It set off like this whole thing. It's like and George Lucas is a genius. It's not a perfect film like Empire is, which had a great director and a great writer involved. Return of the Jedi, which I also think is very, very strong. An okay director, and again, a great writer involved. The prequels were Lucas just one man showing it, and it shows. It shows for all the good and bad. There are great elements to the prequels, and there are really, really weak elements to the prequels. But I think the biggest complaint, It's the same thing that people hammer Disney on. But George Lucas did the same thing, writing these flying by the seat of his pants. Writing the first one with no sense of what the second will be. Writing the second one with no sense of the third. And they don't flow. They don't make sense. There's things that it's like, they're just basic things that would have made them stronger, that if you had written them all out ahead of time and made sure there was like a logical arc to all this, they would have greatly benefited, just like the sequel trilogy. Would have benefited if someone sat down and on a whiteboard at least had an outline. This is where we're going. Episode 7, this will happen. 8, this will happen. 9, this will happen. Now assign it to writers and say, line this up, rather than the way they did it, which was just once one movie is out, it's like, all right, what are we going to do for the next one? Who's going to direct it? Like, that's crazy. It's the biggest film property in the world, and you're just figuring out as you go. Building the track in front of the train, that's insane. Anyway, Lucas trademarked that move, and it shows. Right. Because so much of the Star Wars content is like duct taping the prequels together and making them make sense, you know? Say that without shame. You know what? But this, you know what I compare this to? So I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan. And the Legend of Zelda fandom is the same way. Whatever the latest Zelda is garbage. The last one was actually really good. And that's what they've done every Zelda game for my entire, like, ever since the first one in the 80s. It's always like, the first Zelda was, so the first Zelda came out, everyone liked that, because there's nothing compared to. The second one comes out, Adventure of Link. This is trash. We liked the first Zelda. And then Link to the Past comes out. And it's like, I have problems with this. It's good, but I have problems with it. Adventure of Link was actually really good. And then what was the next one? Ocarina of Time. First 3D one. Ignoring all the pocket ones and the, portable ones. Ocarina of Time, like, I don't know, 3D, it's weird. Like, the controls, I don't know. Kid Link, what? Time travel. Link to the Past is a masterpiece. And then Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is weird. Ocarina of Time is a masterpiece. And then, like, whatever. Twilight Princess or whatever one came after that. Twilight Princess is garbage. Majora's Mask was a master. This is what I think a lot of Star Wars fandom does. I can't believe all these sudden, like, fans of the prequels now that the sequels have been out. And I hate to break it to you all. Once they ever get around to more Star Wars movies, get ready for people saying, like, Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and God forbid even Rise of Skywalker, were actually very, very good. Because that's the move. That's what people do. So, like, I'm sorry, but I dismiss this. This idea that, like, the prequels are good because I didn't like the sequels. No, the prequels were not good. They weren't. I watched them. I saw them day one. I saw them many times. I've seen them many times since. And I love Star Wars. I will rewatch them because there's moments that I think, oh, that's cool. They're not good. None of the prequels are good. And the best one, I've long said, is Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace is the best of the prequels. Yeah. No, to me, Rise of Skywalker is there with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where it's like I have to remind myself that's a Star Wars. For me, Star Wars ended with The Last Jedi. That was a great ending. It left a weird, ambiguous future. They should do a sequel trilogy ignoring... It should almost be like how they're doing, like with those Halloween movies where they ignored all the sequels. They just treated the first one. I feel like, let's do a sequel trilogy where we just ignore Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker didn't happen. It left off with the war raging on. With Rey and Kylo is the supreme channel, the whatever he is of the New Order, and Rey and Leia and the rebels are off someplace else. Let's do 30 years later where Rey is old and has to teach a Jedi to fight the fight. I don't know, but like Rise of Skywalker didn't happen. I didn't. Yes, he did. And it was some of the worst expanded universe stuff. I remember. I read all that shit. It's part of why I'm very loath to get into non-movie Star Wars stuff. Because I was there. I can't remember. I was born in 1975. I've done all the expanded universe stuff. It was garbage. And I remember at the time, it was just, you know what this Clone Wars stuff reminds me of? I remember back in the day, everyone was coming to me, it's like, because I used to talk about like, oh, the expanded universe is terrible. These comics are terrible. These books are terrible. And people would say, oh, you got to read the Timothy Zahn books. The Zahn trilogy. The Zahn trilogy, it's like what happened after Return of the Jedi. They're amazing. They're so good. Oh, it's going to be great. Mara Jade. The Emperor has clones. Luke dabbles in the dark side. And you're like, and enough people say that shit to you. You're like, all right. I'll read the Zahn books. I hate to say this about another creator, but look, he's successful. He's making money. They let him make more books now in the current, basically expanded universe 2.0. So it doesn't matter. Like if I don't like them. They were some of the worst written books I've ever read in my life. And that's not even hyperbole. I remember in that first one, I don't remember the name of it now, but that first one in that trilogy where they're introducing Mara Jade. Go and check it. If you still have, I probably still have it. I keep books I hate to just show like, see, anybody can do it. So Mara Jade, I think like 3 times in the first 50 pages she's introduced, they describe her giving a sardonic smile. Like she smiles sardonically. She, like 3 times. Like this is Bush League shit, guys. Like the fact that like I was astonished that this is one everyone was hailing as like, oh, I hope they make movies of these someday. The Zahn trilogy. It's going to be amazing. You should read them. They're better than the movies. The guy has one way to describe her face. Over and over and over again. And just the again, last thought on the Zahn trilogy. Just the weird fan fiction nature of it. Like Luke had a hot redhead assassin wife. The camera's not frozen. That's my reaction. It's dumb, guys. Again, that's like for 12-year-olds. That's for pre-adolescent and adolescent boys to be like, wow. Luke is screwing a ginger. It's dumb. It's stupid. I'm sorry. Sorry. Expanded universe is worse. Okay. Where are we at? Palpatine and clone in the books is where we let off. Where are we at? Okay. Clone, yes. I remember Luke with 2 L's. It was like 2 or 3 L's or something. Again, just me saying that's a thing. If you're unfamiliar with the expanded universe, that was a thing. Luke with Luke, the clone of Luke. Luke dabbles in the dark side and he wears like a Dracula collar. Guys, come on. It's stupid. It's so corny and dumb. Yeah, Jedi Academy. Look, I mean, I'm not loving how they're doing Luke and Mandalorian, but I would like to see maybe his academy that he sets up before Kylo smokes it. Like, I'm sort of interested in that. But again, if I had to pick between that and something completely clear of all the established storytelling, I would want to, let's get out of this, because you're pissing me off with these decisions. Like, this is, can we skip ahead 100 years or back 100 years or something? Because I'm white knuckling it through this stuff, guys. Like, you're making weird calls and weird story choices that yeah, now see, that's something I could more understand someone who's like, Last Jedi was good, but just not a great Star Wars. I obviously disagree. I loved Last Jedi. But to me, I've heard that complaint about Andor, that it doesn't feel very Star Wars. That's fair. Like, I would agree. Andor, sometimes it feels more like Blade Runner. And again, it might be like the Holdo maneuver thing. Because I'm digging it, I'm forgiving it. If I didn't like it, I could see like that being a problem. But yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately those visuals aren't aging. And there's no way to avoid that, you know, but that CG is... And I think they spent more time on, and this is a common complaint, too much time on sort of the political intrigue and not enough on Anakin. I think at most there should have been a parallel fall. How does a democracy go to a totalitarian like empire? And how does a good Jedi go to Darth Vader? Like, you could, and I think in theory, probably that's what Lucas thought he was doing, but that's not how it came out. It kind of came out like you have this weird, petulant, bratty school shooter type, Anakin Skywalker, and this like puppet master Palpatine who's turning this ineffective government against itself. Like, so that to me seemed more thought out, and like the Anakin thing seemed very sketched. It didn't, I don't know. They have shields. Missiles don't work with shields are up. That was the whole premise of the first movie. Yes, true. I don't know how the Holdo would, but see, that's just it. I don't know how, if the Holdo maneuver would work against a shielded ship. I don't remember if Snoke's capital ship had the shields up when that happened. I'd have to rewatch it. I don't know. But shields also, they're not 100%. Like, it's just like Star Trek. People have their shields up. They're getting hit with blasters and it's causing minor damage. So in theory, like, if you hit something hard enough, even with its shields, shouldn't matter, you know. Well, I agree with that. I think, but I guess we would probably quibble over what's an established rule or not, and whether it's being broken. So, you know. I played it, and if you can drop a metal rod from the atmosphere using just... I don't think that's true, though. Yeah, that's not correct. No, because, like, satellites fall all the time. Space junk and stuff out of planes and stuff, and it doesn't wipe out cities or blow the planet up. You know, there's like a... I'm sure the math could be done, like speed versus size. And also with Call of Duty dropping the metal rod, that's not going to be going light speed. So, but a physicist would be able to figure that out. How big would something have to be? If it's going light speed, how much mass to break the Earth in half? I'm sure it's just a math problem. But let's see here. I liked Force Awakens. Yeah. And I get, you know, what the prevailing complaint about that one was it's sort of a remake of, like a soft reboot of A New Hope. Whatever. First of all, A New Hope came out in 1977, guys. A lot of people seeing Force Awakens have never seen A New Hope. Or they have watched it and they're like, this looks old, and they haven't been into it. You know, like, I think it's fine on that level. Second, and this was why it worked for me, we were coming off the prequels. We were coming off a bunch of Clone Wars. And this is going to be the first Star Wars movie where George Lucas is not involved. I think I had at least a lot of concern about whether this can even be good and also feel like Star Wars. So, like, I think it kind of had to, like, win back the hearts and minds. And I think it did that. It was very safe, I think, in a lot of ways. But maybe it needed to be. Again, you're coming off, nobody, like, people now just want to talk about, like, the sequels. People don't I think people don't remember. The prequels, like, basically shattered the fan base. Like, there were people who hated them. There were people who loved them. There were people who were, like, kind of like me, where it's like, there's bits and pieces that are okay, I guess. Like, and like Clone Wars, again, like, was another big cut where you had these, there are Star Wars fans I meet. I feel like Corey Kerr is kind of in this category. I don't think he'd mind me saying, who, like, when I say, like, Star Wars fan, to me, it's like Empire Strikes Back and anything that kind of makes me think of Empire Strikes Back. When Corey says he's a Star Wars fan, I think he's talking about Clone Wars and, like, the comics and stuff. I don't think he particularly even cares about the movies that much. So, but that's what the field looked like. It was a mess. So can you make a Star Wars that everybody can kind of, like, oh, this feels like Star Wars and it's fun and I love it. And I think it was a comfort food Star Wars movie. I thought, and I know another complaint is that, like, oh, well, Luke barely shows up. Okay. Like, I mean, you know, I get it. I didn't, that was fine. Again, fine with me. If you're showing up hoping, like, Luke is going to be there doing stuff, I get why that's frustrating. And then some people are mad, like, oh, they killed Han Solo. It's fine. Look, Harrison Ford has been talking for 1,000 years about how he wanted Han Solo to die. Like, if that caught you off guard, it was probably a condition to coming back, I bet. I mean, he wanted to die in Return of the Jedi. So I'm fine with that. So I loved Force Awakens. I really loved The Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite Star Wars movie of all of them. You name it. Like, and that's saying something, because Attack of the Clones was solidly my least favorite for a long time. But now, like, there are enough elements of Attack of the Clones where it's like, no, this beats Rise of Skywalker. So, okay. That's about as long as I wanted to go. I got to do some photographing and some serious drawing. Next week, Saturday, I'll be back. Should be, at the worst case scenario, trying to finish page 41. Best case scenario, starting page 42. Starting page 42 would be great, and I'm going to try to do it, but I don't know. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, whatever you're doing. Same. I don't even own it. I can't. It's stupid for a 47-year-old man to say this. I can't tell you how angry that movie made me. I would rather see that Zahn trilogy with Mara Jade's sardonic smile, like, than rewatch Rise of Skywalker. It just, And it had moments. It had moments. Rey and Kylo's duel on the wreck of the Death Star was pretty cool. I'm searching for another moment. I don't know. That might have been it. That might have been the only thing about that movie I thought was cool. I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. Carrie Russell in her bounty hunter outfit. That's all I got. I don't know. And it's not even that I didn't like the rest of it. Like, a lot of it made me just actively like, what are they doing? What are you? I mean, and it's a meme at this point, but Oscar Isaac being like, somehow Palpatine has returned. Like, and the face and the whole body language, that was, to me, like me and so many Star Wars fans, it was like, you can't even say it, can you? It's so... Ugh. I just can't. I just can't. I won't. Anyway. Yeah, I mean... Damn it. Here's another example of the fandom, and then I'm signing off. Like, I agree. Terrible. But, again, this is another big move of, like... I've seen so many people say, like, oh, they should have done the original, the leaked script. The Trevor... What's the guy's name? The Jurassic World guy. Trevorrow? Something like that. They should have done his script. It leaked out. You can read the whole thing. Would it have been better? I don't know. There's stuff in I read that script, and there's stuff in that is very weird. Okay? Super, super weird. And to me, like, feels like also kind of like a Clone Wars episode where it's like, we got weird dark side alien teachers, and we got like on just weird, like, just stuff where it's like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. But this is what I want to say. And it's kind of like that Jodorowsky's Dune documentary, which I love. It's very, or the Tim Burton Superman. It's very easy to say a thing that didn't have to go through the gauntlet of getting made would be better than the thing that actually had to go through that process. Ideas are easy, ideas are cheap, and ideas are always boundless and exciting and wonderful and sounds great. It's the making of the thing where something happens or doesn't happen. I get what people are saying when they say, like, oh, the original script for Rise of Skywalker is better, which I think it was originally going to be Duel of the Fates or something. I'm sorry. I get what you're saying. You can't say that. You don't know. Every idea is great. Every possibility, like, it's the making. It's the making of it. It's a good lesson for all those creators out there. Like, ideas are... doing it is where it comes together or it doesn't. The end result is where something is good or bad. You can't say that would have been better. You don't know that. You don't know. And I'm not convinced anyway. Like, I read that script and it's probably not as bad, maybe not as bad as Rise of Skywalker, but it's also really weird and bad, in my opinion. I get why Disney blinked on that script. I get they're like, is this really what we want to do? Because it's weird. But at least on paper, it's doing some things better. It makes more sense, and it honors both all the threads laid out by Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. One of the big complaints about Rise of Skywalker is it basically just ignores The Last Jedi, which, even if you hated The Last Jedi, that's not the way to deal with it. You write your way out of it. You don't just say, like, let's pretend it never happened. And that's, if I had to say one complaint about Rise of Skywalker, it's the second sequel to Force Awakens where the previous movie is a movie we never saw and never got made. It's like it just ignores it. It's almost like J.J. Abrams was like, let's just pretend it didn't happen. Let's pretend something else happened in that spot that was The Last Jedi and just go from there. It's weird. It's not... If you're going to be writing a trilogy like that, where it's yes and, J.J. Abrams does Force Awakens, and then Rian Johnson comes in and has to say, like, yes and come up with his thing. It's the responsibility of whoever's in that third spot, J.J. Abrams again, to say, look at The Last Jedi and say, yes and like go from there. You can change. You can go in a different direction. You can treat The Last Jedi as a misdirect if you didn't like it, if you objected to it. But you can't just ignore it. You can't just throw out the implications from it. You can't just walk away from it. Like, you have to... That's your job. That's the writer job. Okay, that's it. I had no idea it would be so much Star Wars today. I want to draw. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And I will see you Saturday morning with more DvsM 1979. And maybe we'll be talking about the exciting conclusion of Andor, or maybe we won't talk about Star Wars at all. Just for a change of pace. Talk to you later.